Hello friends, I made this for. My name is Lauren and I am a Reiki practitioner, a tarot reader, and I love astrology. I'm also an artist. Welcome to my studio, home, blah, blah, blah. Let's get into it. It is officially Libra season. So I hope you're feeling light, fancy, and just a little bit more airy. Libra season happens on the fall equinox. Of course, Libra is our initiator of the fall season. So that was the 22nd of September. And let's see here. We've got some things coming up. The 26th, which is Sunday, is going to be Saturn retrograde. We've got the sun square the moon, the 28th. And then, of course, then we move into October and full-on spooky season. But if you've ever been here before, welcome back. If you've never been here before, I like to talk about astrology through the tarot. All of astrology okay, not all of it, just some of it, can be found represented in the tarot. And I like to use the tarot as a way to reflect back and forth on these themes, because I think one influences the other as far as grounding our understanding in something a little bit more tangible, if that helps. If it helps, I don't really know. It helps me, so I hope it helps you. But I like to go through 3 different cards to just kind of get an idea of what sort of lessons are here. So, let's get into it. 3 decks that I'm working with today are the Renaissance Tarot. This is actually, I'm going to do a review on this deck. I'm really excited to share it with you today because the Renaissance Tarot, the last time it was printed was the 90s. So my fiance found an old print of it at a bookstore or a resale store, wherever, but we're going to use that today. The Mary L. Tarot, 2nd edition, and we're going to be using the good old-fashioned Way Home Tarot to kind of be looking at what are the lessons of this card and how they relate back to Libra. Justice is a really interesting card because Justice kind of shows, it's a very feminine card with a lot of representation, being a female presenting character. Of course, if you've been here before, you know I don't like to specifically gender things, but I always found that an interesting choice to have Justice be a femme character, right? Justice is also really interesting because when we look at Justice as its relationship to Libra, there is this balance of the scales, this representation that we see. And let's start by diving into that by looking at the Renaissance Tarot here. We see this character holding up the scales with nothing but a finger. And just as old representations of this card will show, it's got, this person has the sword pointing upwards. So this is sometimes seen as like a connection to God, as seeing like this person is like connected to the higher self in a way. But I think there's something really powerful here as far as the finger. It does ring to me as very air, which of course Libra is an air sign. Libra is our cardinal air. So there's this royalty to this card in most representations, and we'll get to that in just a second. It's very obvious that Justice kind of comes up in this card as being light, not being weighed down by too much information. And I think the great thing about Justice as it relates to Libra is there's a difference between judgment and discernment. And knowing the difference between the two is pivotal in being able to make informed decisions. Of course, we see here again, not being weighed down, staying light, airy. Also, having the ribbons coming down gives us another feel of this like air. There's ribbons on both sides and they are light feeling. So the sword also, to me, always goes back to cutting through the bullshit and into the deepest layers of truth, right? When we see the two sides of the scales, they're equal. And that's a theme we'll see in another card in just a second. This equalness, this dispersion of weight that is equal, has a specific feel to it of like bringing balance. So a question here is, or an invitation rather for this season might be, how do we stay balanced? And how do we stay light in our ability to make our decisions correctly instead of being weighed down by certain ideologies, weighed down by a certain perspective, weighed down from one side is right, the other is wrong, and it's a dog-eat-dog world, right? How can we use discernment over judgment? Because justice is not judgment. I mean, justice that is carried out wrong, of course, is judgment. But it's discernment that gets down to the nitty-gritty of what's going on and why. What all is there to be illuminated and learned. So again, I also like that this justice has the breasts exposed, because I almost think that this is allowing us to sink into the softness at which we can carry our discernment. Our discernment does not have to be, and isn't going to be, cutthroat. It's going to be open, receptive, but at the end of the day, take no shit. Do no harm, take no shit. I know everyone loves that phrase or whatever. But let's get into another card, shall we? Another card that shows very similar illustrations is the Way Home Tarot. And of course, I want to show this. I've shown this one in the past because it has the two sides. They are equal, but there is this light and dark. So once again, we're being asked to observe things with a little bit more discernment. Perhaps the answer to a question that comes up in Libra season, or the invitation of Libra season, is to allow ourselves to see the world with more transparency rather than veils and just dividers, blinders, keeping us where we have been. A big thing with justice to me is also in this card is this idea of stillness. There's so much balance on both sides. And it looks like it could be precarious. This is also a great thing to come back to the idea of justice just in general. Things can easily sway. Things can very quickly change. And the truth is, the world that we live in is kind of just a bunch of rocks stacked up on each other, and at any moment, things could topple over. Staying fair and balanced is not easy. Staying in this space is not easy. It's all very precarious. And so what a good reminder from this version of justice is this idea that this moment, this layer, this like just second that we're able to see and observe, it's fleeting. It's not forever. So there's a lot to take in here as far as like justice and what this means long term. The season of fall feels fleeting to me, which feels really maybe not profound, but in alignment. This season goes by so quickly to me. It gets cold so fast, and then we're in the dead of winter and the intensity that comes with it. I feel the same way about spring. So I kind of feel the same way about Aries season. There's this instantaneous feel. We must enjoy the moments that we can get and also acknowledge how very fragile the world is that we sit upon. Giving more grace to where the accidents are and where there's problems in our own lives can, again, help us have a little bit more discernment. Seeing things clearly and as they are can be a big Libra lesson. A lot of people like to say Libra is wishy-washy, wishy-washy, wishy-washy. And though I wouldn't disagree entirely, Libra is wishy-washy, wishy-washy, wishy-washy because Libra experiences things in a felt sense. It's an experience of knowing, of feeling. So perhaps rather than saying Libra is wishy-washy, Libra is receptive. Libra is receptive to the energies around, the information around, and absorbing the information around. However, discernment is also part of that. In going through and absorbing and understanding and all of this, the idea is hopefully with any Libra and Libra season, we do this game so that we can find that balance in the center. One extreme to the other? Perhaps. But how do we reach equilibrium? And justice reminds us that equilibrium is fleeting. At least in this card. I'm rambling though, and we have one last card to talk about. The Marielle Tarot has a great symbol. So Justice in this deck has an ostrich feather. You might recognize this symbol from Egyptian hieroglyphics. This symbol, the feather, represents truth. So I don't want to mispronounce the goddess of that in Egyptian mythology would weigh the feather against a person's soul to see if they lived a just life, but the goddess's name is spelled M-A''. I want to say it's Mat, but sorry everybody, probably fucked it up. So I think justice in this representation is so perfect because it is discernment. Weighing out something against something pure, right? The purity of truth. Of course, right now, truth is weird, isn't it? Truth is really interesting because we all live in different truths. And so what is the true truth is kind of the vibe of 2021. Discernment in this circumstance says you can only use the tools that are in front of you to go off of what is and is not truth. And I think a good reminder for all of us in this Libra season is each one of us has a fucking different feather. And that makes it even more tricky to discern that discrepancy between all of us. What might be a good invitation is to borrow each other's feather. Simply take a second to weigh it out. Is it that different than yours? Does your life look that much different from someone else's? If you were to use somebody else's truthometer, how would you weigh out? And how are you weighing others against yours? A good invitation with Libra season, connecting back to that equilibrium, is that we need to find that equilibrium by reflecting and listening. Discernment is really important because it can acknowledge that what someone else experiences is real while also not being for you. It also allows us to feel into what is truly for us. So it's not only just not for me, it helps us realize what is. So in this season of Libra, in this Aries season that is the cardinal energy of air, I hope you can weigh some different feathers against yourself and see how would you add up and how can this understanding encourage your personal growth. But with that said, thank you for being here. It's been a weird fucking week. That full moon was whack. Wasn't it? Comment down below if you also think that moon was whack. But anyway, with that said, please like, comment, subscribe if you like what your girl just did for you. If you don't, keep it rolling, baby. Links down below to work with me. I'll also link down below my Libra season talk from last year, if I did one, or the year before. I don't know. It's been a while. But anyway, again, hope you enjoyed all these videos popping up around me and playlists. Please make sure to check out those. If you want to work with me, links are down below. I have a Patreon, a podcast, and all that good shit. So I hope you have a beautiful Libra season. We'll probably talk about Mercury Gatorade or something else in the coming future. And I will see you next time, my friends. Bye-bye.